Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Cheapseats. This is your weekly Premier League show. But today, it's the day after, the night before, of all the drama that happened at Old Trafford, and Manchester United think they are top four beaters, while Spurs are like, we're holding on to third for as long as we can. And yeah, Chelsea just now all of a sudden drawing games against the team they should be beating, but we're okay with that. And we're loving Amazon Prime interviewing both coaches before the game. I'd actually ask like some real questions if I was Harry Potter, not just, how does it feel to coach in the championship? But anyway, that's what we talk about. But one thing with England, things change so quickly, and the only good thing that's constant in England is that Arsenal are still top of the log. They don't have a prime minister as we record today, so that's keep calm. Arsenal still at top, but we got Wahid back. That's a good thing. So Wahid, yes. How are you doing?
Good, better after last night. I wasn't expecting what I saw, so I'm pretty stoked with that.
Okay, so remember that the show, I'll greet Cyrus and Dean, but they've been here for a while. Remember, the show is sponsored by Classic Shirts ZA, and we have the shirt of the week. And so to remind the England supporters that there is a team across the pond that are world champions, you can look like the world champions going into France, because they'll be there probably for 3 games, because that's how they do. They'll win the World Cup and they'll come second, and then they'll get knocked out in the first round. But you can look good for like a week at the World Cup. You can go get this France World Cup 2022 set if you want, or either one or both, at Classic Shirts ZA. Cyrus, I'm going to ask you, because the other two support England. Would you be a fan of the repeat?
Well, I'll say this. I am a fan of French football. I'm also a fan of English football. So I'm not an anti-England fan, and I've got an England shirt I wear all the time because it washes really nicely. I would not be averse to France doing it again. I think the thing is, the French actually have such incredible and unique talents that when you look at that entire lineup, you think, okay, somebody goes down and you're like, oh, doom and gloom. Like, let's say, dare I say, he who shall not be named, but we'll name him Paul Pogba. Mm-hmm. There are other players who can step up, and I think that they've found a rhythm. So I'm looking forward to seeing what France do. We all know who's winning the World Cup, though, right? And it's not England,
and it's definitely not France. Who do you think's winning the World Cup, Cyrus?
Brazil.
Ooh, yeah, that's where my money is as well.
Yeah, I think this is it.
I reckon Argentina's got a decent shot there as well.
Honestly.
No.
Not with Romero there.
Especially with Romero there.
I'm only kidding about Romero.
Yeah. Okay. Cyrus, how are you doing?
Good. Yeah, Chelsea, they certainly serve up some very interesting treats. And that game against Brentford was no gimme. I mean, like, Chelsea weathered an absolute storm. Koulibaly suddenly looked as if he'd never played football before. But then towards the end, Chelsea started to exert some dominance. But we'll talk a little bit about players who we need to be casting our eyes over and really potentially pointing in derision, looking at them. Because there's one or two at Chelsea I'm very keen to bring up and start scolding.
Okay. Dean, last night, actually, I will ask you how you're doing when we start our new topic. Last night, I watched Spurs, Dean, and I looked at them and I'm like, this team can't be third. There's no way this team can be third. And throughout, even in the Arsenal game, he played a little bit of negative football, but I thought maybe that was the situation to come against a team like Arsenal, because obviously, maybe Arsenal are favorites at home and you haven't beaten them at home. But then against Manchester United yesterday, you kind of felt like this 3-5-2 system that Conte is playing is not great. And so for me, my question was, and to a certain extent, when I was sorry, that is the Classic Shirts graphic. Just trying to sort that out. It felt like it was a false dawn. It felt like the Spurs team have been playing a slightly negative brand of football, getting away with it because you got Harry Kane and Son, but against the big boys, it's not happening. And there was a period last night before the second goal where, actually for the second goal, guys just didn't want to run. And I'm sitting there going, do they want this guy fired? But how are you feeling? How did you see yesterday's game? And how do you feel about your team sitting in third, not playing this great football?
That's a very loaded question. And I sat last night after that game and I was in bed and I was like, please just make it end, because I just knew. I saw the WhatsApp groups going crazy.
Make it end.
I knew I had to go into the office. I was like, please, not today. But yeah, I think we can all agree that Spurs aren't to blame. It's actually just that horrendous Billabong kit. I mean, how do you expect Oaks to play in that thing? Like, let's be serious.
Well,
let's blame the real culprit.
There is a real history of teams blaming kits. Just ask Sir Alex Ferguson,
Exactly.
Manchester United, in a certain grey kit at Southampton.
I actually want to buy that kit.
But let me get back.
Who will be able to see you? Yeah.
Let me get into it. So, I mean, there's two sort of ways to look at this. I think, so one of the things that came out is that no team in the top 6 has beaten another team in the top 6 away from home this season, right? And Spurs are the only top 6 team to have played 3 of the top 6 teams away from home, being Chelsea, United, and Arsenal now. So that's a little bit of a positive that you can sort of take if you want to try and scrape positives, that Spurs have played all these tough games away from home, and those are going to be obviously the tougher games in the season. So get that over and done with, and we can move on. My problem with that is, though, we should not be in a position where we are thinking that way, where we are saying we can go away from home, and if you get a draw, happy. Let's just get away from being away at some of the top 6 teams. So for me, the bigger concern is this is not the Spurs that Conte promised. This is not the team that Spurs fans thought Conte would provide. This is the team that we were saying, when we get knocked down, we stand up again and we keep going. And that, I think, in the Arsenal game, we saw it, but it's a London derby. Arsenal were playing way better football. There was the red card, so you can kind of look at a bit of that. Yesterday, there are no excuses. The way we played against United was horrendous. We made them look like they were the absolute top tier team in England, and they're just not that. They were passing us out of space. They were running through us like it was just hot butter. I was really happy when I saw Conte play that 3-5-2, because I thought, okay, we're going to load up that midfield.
Wait, hold up. Here's my question with that 3-5-2, right? You wanted that after Arsenal. Everyone wanted Bissouma inside.
Everyone did. Everyone.
Well, the Spurs fans. Well, you can't say everyone, because I was sitting there going,
yeah.
But if you look at a guy like Mourinho, and you look at and because everyone laughed at Mourinho when his tactic was pass to Kane and Son, right? Now it feels like there's no one to pass the ball to Kane and Son to, and on top of that, you don't have that many attacking players.
So I think everyone was calling for the 3-5-2. And it did work against Everton, but that's Everton. I think the way that we saw it played yesterday was Bissouma doesn't look like the Bissouma I watched at Brighton. Man looks like he just walked onto a football field, so call that what it is. He had a shocking game. Bentancur loves to go up the pitch when he feels like there's a bit of space, but then can't track back. Højbjerg just does stupid things when it gets to games like this. And that back line just falls apart as soon as there's a bit of pressure on it. And then you can't get the ball to Son and Kane because it just comes straight back into your own half. So it's just a calamity of errors. And I think the big sort of problem that we now have is, well, 3-4-3 works, but we thought 3-5-2 would have worked better in games like that against top 6 away from home. It clearly doesn't. We are missing Richarlison again for another 2 weeks or a week with the calf injury. Kulusevski's still out, so there's no reinforcements. So you can't, throwing someone like Lucas on isn't going to change the game. There's no creativity in that midfield. And on top of that, Son and Kane performances are slightly better, but Son is so out of form, it's ridiculous. So you're sitting at it in a situation where United should have won that game 6 or 7-0. If it wasn't for Lloris, it would have been an absolute rugby score. And you can't say it's not deserved. I think, every single United fan was expecting that. I think Rashford was wasteful in front of goal. Could have easily scored 2 or 3 himself.
Massively surprising.
But
Rashford missing chances.
I think the problem now is where to. The Spurs fans called for 3-5-2. That doesn't work. We called for Doherty on the right and to drop Emerson. Did that? Doesn't work. So now what? And
can I jump in here?
Yes. Let's go.
Let's talk expectations versus reality, because Conte came in and changed the expectations of this club. Like, Conte isn't coming in to challenge for top 4. Conte comes in to challenge for trophies. And then he is absolutely backed, number one, in January to get the players that he wants through the door in Bentancur and Kulusevski. And then he's back to the hilt again in the summer. So now we've got a situation where for once you actually can't point fingers at Daniel Levy. You can't point fingers anywhere apart from placing blame at this manager's footsteps. You've got a manager who's come in to win trophies, and he's setting that team up to me looking last night like United were playing Sean Dyche's Burnley. That's how it looked. That's how it felt. It felt like a team devoid of any ideas or any creativity. And United had a good game plan for once, because usually we'll talk about this later. Usually we play against the big six. Cyrus and I will say, yeah, we won, but we won playing on the counter-attack. That was not the case last night. Last night, we cut you to ribbons. And United aren't a team who usually play well against a team sitting in a low block, which Spurs did. Spurs sat in a low block.
Tried to play a low block.
Yeah, you try to play a low block and hit us on the counter-attack. And usually United are very bad against teams like that. That is why we've come why we do well against Liverpools and Arsenals of the world, and come unhinged against the Brightons of the world who sit back and wait for us. So yesterday was a case where we have to look at the manager and saying, what are you doing? Because you've been backed. It's no longer a case of not backing the manager. Spurs look a little bit broken and don't look like they know where they're headed.
Yep.
And to a certain extent, before I bring Cyrus and Exeter, or if you look at that Spurs squad, the lack of reinforcements, you can't. We knew last season Emerson wasn't cutting it, right? So the fact that you obviously went and got Jed Spence, but you're not going to play him, so you're stuck with Doherty. You know, the left back situation in itself, I think you're lucky that Ryan Sessegnon's doing well, but he's not on the field. You know, even in that midfield, I was happy that you got Basuma, but the guys, there's no attacking midfield in that side, unless if it's Lucas. You know, so
but I've been calling for it as well. Yeah.
So my thing is that Paratici, to a certain extent, and Conte have set this because it's not like it's another. I feel sorry for Harry Kane, and I'm just going to Cyrus with this one. It's another wasted year. It feels.
So it definitely feels that way. I wanted to do one or two things here. The first one be let's tread a little cautiously here, because how many games into the season are we? If there's one manager who's able to look at what he has in front of him and say, okay, fine, hang on. How do I make this work? It's Conte. Now, the problem is we can't use past Conte with present Conte and expect that will be the same result. So I do think that, we are right to question him, but I think that Spurs have got the capacity to get better. What I will say is this. As much as he was backed, and they did buy some pretty good players, it's not as if Spurs went and got the cream of the crop in every single position, including Perisic in particular, because that 3-5-2 screams wingbacks. And Emerson is really the other wingback that really works well. I was so shocked when Reguilon was let go, because he wasn't terrible. He just clearly wasn't the person that Conte wanted in that space. And when you look at all of the other options, Conte plays well in a wingback system, but there are no really good wingbacks in this team. The signing of Doherty was like okay, we can't go shop at Woolies, we can't even go to Pick and Pay. Maybe ShopRite's got a right back for us, or a right.
He's a Mourinho signing. How long ago was that?
Exactly. So this is the whole thing, in the sense that every single time, these are still the same chickens coming home to roost. You might have purchased now, but the purchases were in spaces that weren't necessarily the most key places. Did Spurs need to buy more attackers at the level that they did in terms of Kulusevski and Richarlison? Potentially, if they wanted to challenge for more trophies. But the biggest issue is, how does Conte's team build up? It builds up from the wing backs, it builds up from the flanks. And if you haven't necessarily taken care of those areas, then there's going to be problems. I think Kulusevski allows a little bit of that width. That's why he's so important.
Yeah.
But you don't necessarily have that on the other side. And let's also be honest, Sessegnon was never first choice, and he feels that way. In fact, every single part of that Spurs backline, I keep thinking, is this guy who they really wanted? Like maybe Romero, but every single one of those players, I keep looking at them and thinking, how are we back at 2006 Spurs, where you're looking at their defense going, really, this guy?
I agree. And I think, well, just to jump in there, sorry, I think it's honestly, for me, it's now the first time I'm now looking at Conte and I'm starting to go, are you sure you know what you're doing? Like previously, I was like, listen, I back you. You've got the credibility. You know what's cracking. I believe in you. Last night was the first time I thought you fine. You don't really have anyone off the bench to bring on, but try something. He did it way too late. He looked on that sideline. It wasn't a man shouting, trying to get the players back into form. He was just sitting there with his hands in his head, going, "This is happening again." And fine, post game, he said, he admitted that we play poorly against the top sides, and it's a mentality thing. But I 100% agree with Wahid there that's your job. That's your only job that you have as a manager. Pick the team and make sure that they can fight when they need to fight and back them.
I was just waiting for him to change to back forward. When we went one up, like just change it. Try something.
Do something.
Being absolutely outplayed from top to bottom. Change it.
So my thing was this, right? And I know a lot of people make fun of Mikel, but it's the same thing out of the Ole playbook. You just got to play with energy. At least come with something, And that was my issue was that what is Spurs' calling card? Is it defense? Is it attack? If it's defense and you're playing the 3-5-2, then show me something.
Come on, Paul. You know what the calling card is. It's tripping at the final hurdle, and they're doing it early. So the biggest issue, though, is I get your point in the sense that, okay, so are they good at defense or are they good at offense? They've got one of the best strikers in world football in their team. They actually have potentially one of the top. I mean, where did Son finish in
Son was top goal scorer last
season. Yeah. So the thing for me is you look at those guys and you say, okay, let's not mess with that. And they didn't. They've just brought some reinforcements in to try and make sure that they've bolstered that attack. That makes a lot of sense. But how do you try and unlock those guys more? And we were talking about, the Mourinho always looking for Kane and Son. But the reality is that direct football works. And the craziness of it all is people will lambast Mourinho for doing it, but Lord Jurgen Klopp, whose goalkeeper is getting assists. I mean, it's Route 1 football for want of any any other description. But some fan bases are going to suddenly start saying, "Well, Mo Salah's back to his best because he happened to just slip past a defender who made a terrible mistake." So the thing here is, let's look at what Spurs are, and this goes back to the entire Conte discussion. Who is Conte? Conte is not a cup manager. We've known this for years. He doesn't necessarily go deep into cups. His teams do okay in cups, but they don't necessarily make finals very often. What he is a league manager. Often he tries to get the guys to play really hard, really well defensively as a unit. We haven't seen Spurs play particularly well this season as a cohesive unit. And that says there's underlying issues between the manager and the players, especially since he's standing there with his hand on his head like this, like, okay, what now? What now? Because any manager that does that, he's basically, dare I even use this Gollum's name? Avram granting the situation. Because Avram would just be there, like the tactical switch is this. That's not a switch. So how do you...
But Cyrus, Coaching 101 says, if you're watching this team lacking energy, you go and pick somebody, even if it's a kid, just to be like, hey, dude, I just need you to give me some energy. I need you to run. I need you to do something. Get in someone's face, tackle something, which is what I laud Lisandro Martinez, because in that Arsenal game, the first thing he did was he went and kicked somebody.
He goes for it.
And they started.
He's old school, right? He's old school. He'll
Yes.
be out
You
there
just-
and he'll get stuck in. But here's
But
here's
when you
the
talk about
key
picking
thing.
a kid to do that, that's almost like when we were in a shambles. That's when Scott
Yeah.
McTominay was picked for the first
McTominay,
time.
yeah.
Just run, try
Run.
your hardest, get in someone's
Exactly.
face. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the other thing, it does two things. The first thing is that the fans love it because he's one of our own. We all start singing that absolute nonsense. And the other one being that he's actually giving a toss, to use a nice phrase. But you asked about identity. And the key thing about Antonio Conte is, as much as he is a winner and he wants to win, he also hates to lose. So he sets his teams up to not lose first and try and grab a win second. And that's what you saw in that United game. That as soon as Spurs conceded, he didn't think, right, that's it, we've got to take the game with them. He goes, no, one is okay. We can still try and absorb this and hit them on the counter. And that's just loser football.
But to be fair, when we went 1-0 down, I think that is the right mentality. Like, you are 1-0 down. You don't change your game plan after being 1-0 down.
You're away
I think-
from home. You're losing
Yeah,
1-0.
just let me
You're
hear me out.
lacking energy.
He needed to try and do something, and I think, fine, put your trust in that front two. And to be fair, we could have probably got an equalizer at the end there. Like Kane, it was that offside, but could have maybe tried to get a goal, right? As soon as that's not working, you do something. And the problem with me now is you can very clearly see that there are very few players that Conte actually wants to throw onto that pitch. If anything, we maybe have a squad of 14 players that he actually might want to try. Brian Hill maybe kind of wants to try and get on the pitch every now and then. He gives Jed Spence maybe 2 minutes at the end. That's not enough. He's trying to get some of the younger kids up and coming and developed, but they're not getting game time on the field. And that's the problem. So as much as we're saying do something from the bench, realistically, the only person he could have thrown was a recently come back from injury, Lucas Moura, who's probably going to get injured again. And then you're sitting with the same problem next week. So I think it's a double problem. A, we don't have enough squad depth, which we have a better squad than what we did last season. So that's also a pretty stupid excuse, in my opinion. But there will be reinforcements coming in January. It will happen. We're going to offer Conte another contract. We also have to try and look at it and say, you know what, realistically, there's only been one summer transfer window under Conte. You know, Arteta had 3-4 years, and now look at where they are. Klopp had 2-3 summer transfer windows. Now look at where they went to. We have to let a little bit of time. But the problem for me is the lack
If Conte
of...
wants to stay.
Yeah, and 100%. If Conte wants to stay.
Guys,
that's a very big
okay. Let's move across. We'll use Cyrus's identity word and move to the team that won last night. They're probably thinking this is the greatest ever win they've seen in this club since Sir Alex Ferguson left. Wahid, is this the start of ETH ball?
Well, we've been saying that for a couple of weeks now. We've said that after Liverpool. We said that after Arsenal. We're saying that after Spurs. We keep saying, is this the start? And no, it's not the start, but it's the start of the process. And all of these are little building blocks at the start of the process. And I think if we take a step back, we remember last season, I wasn't a ETH man. I wanted Pochettino so badly. And what this guy is doing is proving me wrong, and it's one of what Dean calls a famous Wahid call, because I think I was way off track there, because this is a person who's come in and is setting up so that we can see a team developing in the correct way. And we haven't yet seen that since Alex Ferguson. We haven't seen the team developing the correct way. He's developing something. There's an identity that's starting. There's the inkling of an identity. They're building a solid foundation. That foundation of Varane, Martinez, and Casemiro looks like the foundation of something promising. And I get that they're not young players in Varane and Casemiro, but sometimes you got to build around experienced players like that. And the young players around them are starting to thrive. Dalot, who I've slated left, right, and centre at times, was really, really good last night. Whether Perisic was bad or Dalot was good is another debate, but Dalot was really, really good. And we saw a Man United side developing the right way last night. And yes, if you want to call it something like that, I don't want to go and say, well, yeah, it's the best performance since Alex, because we've had that, and we've had some false dawns. But last night was really a case of United playing the United way. It was relentless attack after attack after attack. It was an energy which sometimes, I sat here thinking after 25 minutes, I thought, okay, well, if we haven't scored now, what happens is that something goes against the team and the energy levels drop, they stop running, and then it's pedestrian, they can't score and they become frustrated and they usually get hit on the counter. And last night we didn't see that. They kept going and they kept playing the way the manager wanted it. They wanted them to play, and it was quite impressive. They really were an impressive side last night, and as bad as Spurs were, which we've talked about now, United were really, really good, and I was very happy. And I can't really pick out a bad player on the night. I think Rashford could have finished a few chances better, but he was really good at running at Spurs, and apart from everything, apart from putting the ball in the back of the net, he was really good at that. Sancho, we've given him crap over the last couple of weeks, but again, he really troubled that Spurs defense at times. He was direct and he caused them problems between the lines. And Bruno Fernandes brought it all together in the middle of the park in what was his best performance in a really long time. So, yeah, I was really stoked with how we played yesterday, and long may it continue against Chelsea at the weekend.
So playing Chelsea, playing Manchester United this weekend. What do you make of this team and this new style of ball and the confidence that they have for slaying top four opposition?
Look, I'll always look at Manchester United as being a tough fixture, even though Chelsea has generally historically had a great record against United. I think we've had some good games against each other in the last few seasons too. I just look at this United team and I say, okay, fine. There are players who can definitely hurt you even when they're in terrible form. Like Rashford is the kind of guy who will miss 75 chances in a game against Spurs, but will score against Chelsea, because that's just how it goes. So I look at that, and the key for me will be somebody like Anthony, or dare I even say, because I've been talking smack about him, Jadon Sancho. I think that you can definitely see more of an identity around the team. They look as if they're forming a particular structure, and this is what the manager is trying to instill. And that's also why you're seeing the strops that Cristiano Ronaldo is throwing left, right, and center, because everyone knows he's not going to be included in any of these really important games. He's a Thursday night footballer right now. He's a Carabao Cup footballer too, according to ETH. Those are the games that he's happy to throw him in for. So it says a lot about the mindset. Looking towards the fixture on the weekend, this could go either way, because United have gotten some really good away wins in this run that they've had in the last, 8 games? Call it 9 games, barring the City result. So I look at it and I say, United will be really, really optimistic about their chances, because Chelsea are still also not 1,000% where they should be or could be. But I also look at this game as being potentially an opportunity for Graham Potter to finally show who he is as the Chelsea manager.
He's already showed that against United once already this season, to be honest.
Yeah, no, exactly. And
I don't want to play Graham Potter again this season, to be honest. He smacked us 4-0 at the end of last season. He's beaten us already this season. I've just seen enough of this guy. Come on.
Yeah, I'm sure with his new haircut, you wouldn't mind seeing him again. But I think what's intriguing about it is that the Brentford game really looked like a game where there was one eye on the United fixture, because Aubameyang was on the bench. We started with Broja. You saw Conor Gallagher start the game. There's a lot of changes, and I think that when you look at the United game, Thiago Silva will be back. The biggest loss will be Reece James, who's obviously out for quite some time, and that will be an opportunity for United to really take it to Chelsea, because that right back is going to be Azpilicueta, who has seen better days, or Ruben Loftus-Cheek, who's not a right wing back. But conversely, they might just throw somebody else on. And I don't want to preempt what we're going to talk about, but I probably will. Chelsea need to really do something about Kai Havertz, because the man, he's a waste man. He's a waste man. Yeah, shucks.
Go. Dean, do you have any words? Yes. But Dean, you've obviously watched this United team yesterday. What do you make of their change, their transition from obviously losing to Brentford and Harry Potter to now, being this team that is running circles around pretty much anybody who's a title contender, except for City.
I think it's pretty obvious, but I think you need to call it out again. I think Casemiro is insanely important for that team to click the way it is and for it to work the way it does. He pretty much is playing the role of two people in covering that back four, and he just flows those passes through to Bruno and through to that front line so quickly and so easily. So I think if Chelsea want to try and stop him, that's the man that you have to stop. So stop it at the root cause, which is going to be difficult.
Yeah.
But I also think in terms of Chelsea's sort of structure and team setup, I do think we're seeing. Well, I know we've talked about it before, but Kepa is starting to really show that he deserves.
He's a good goalkeeper.
He's a good goalkeeper. I think Tony should have scored a lot of goals in that game against Brentford, and if it wasn't for Kepa, Chelsea could easily have lost that game. So I think United may have a tough time getting past him, but ultimately, I think
how unlike an opposition goalkeeper to have the game of their lives against Man United.
Well, I mean, it's that. But the one thing that I will say is Anthony's also looking incredible, but he does one thing, and that's just cuts on the inside and just shoots. So stop.
Is that a bad thing? Is that a bad thing?
It's not a bad thing.
His right foot is like I haven't seen a one-footed player like this since Eric Lamela.
He's basically just
there for standing.
But if you're good at one thing and you do it really well, then keep doing it. I mean, Glenn McGrath was good at putting the ball on a sixpence, but no one could play him. So I mean, if he's good at it, just let him do his thing. He's
always going to cut inside. He's always going to cut inside. He's always going to shoot. So just stop that. That's it.
Okay, guys. Yes, Wahid, well done. Keep climbing up that table. We'll see how you're gonna get there. But anyway, Cyrus wanted to talk about this, and I
just put a caveat there. I don't think that we're gonna win every game this season. Like that's not gonna happen. It is a process, and we're gonna lose games which we should win, and we're gonna win games which we should lose, and that's the nature of a project manager, which we have now got. And I think people need to remember that it is a project manager.
Same with Spurs. Please also remember that.
No. Nice try, Dean.
Spurs isn't a project.
Dean's trying to use your homework, Wahid.
I just want to try smile.
Just trying to copy your homework.
The only thing, Dean, I can tell you is that Harry Kane is going to still be at Spurs. So at least he'll bring you some joy somewhere along the way. He's never going to leave now. He can't go. Especially if Mbappe is clogging up the market. Unless Mbappe goes to Real Madrid, Harry Kane might just move to Paris. Who knows? Farmer's market.
Would he prefer to learn French or German?
Ooh, I think he'd prefer to learn German. But
which one requires less ability to use his tongue? Because that thing's going to get in the way of any language.
Well, Abu will say.
Okay. Cyrus, if we keep on going, we're not going to talk about your fraud watch.
Yes.
Cyrus wants to put players on fraud watch. But we're going to call it players with underwhelming.
That's why Wahid left.
Wahid is the fraud.
There might be a few fraud watch guys on
some of the calls that he's made are fraud.
He'll be back. So, talk to me. You wanted to talk about Kai Havertz. We've known Kai Havertz for the past 2 years. The only thing that's been saving Kai Havertz is that goal in the
Champions League final. Yeah. And frankly, so this is a question that I have to ask. Like, how much, like a goal in the Champions League final to win you the Champions League, how much rope does that buy you? Like
a season and a half worth of
people. Yeah,
a season and 10 games.
I've looked at Havertz, and every single time a season and 10 games, I like that specificity. But I look at Havertz and I keep asking the question. I think it's something that we've asked about other players in the past. So what does he do well? Because he's clearly silky on the ball, but we've seen that in other players that aren't so good. He's just not a great finisher, and being played as a false nine is an absolute abomination for me. I hated every second of it last season, and I hate when it happens again this season. And when he's on the ball, he's so wasteful with the pass. He can delay play. I think we have to have a referendum on Kai Havertz at Chelsea specifically. And I suppose we're talking about underwhelmed. I'm not going to say fraud watch, but even in my team, there's at least one other guy who I won't shed a tear.
Name
if he's
him.
Jorginho. If there's a guy who needed to leave,
Wait, but this is a Euro winner. This is a
Yeah.
European champion.
these are winners. That's what we deal with. I mean, some of you guys just have hangers on. We have winners in our ranks. So the thing about Jorginho is that in every one of the systems that we've seen him used in at Chelsea, he's ponderous on the ball, isn't press resistant, often gets caught out, has been making massive mistakes in games, in some of the biggest games that we faced this season, and that's been the focal point of why there's been an issue in that engine room. So when you've seen, and towards the end of last season, and when Tuchel was there, he used to play N'Golo Kante and Kovacic way more than he did Jorginho, because they just complemented each other so well. Jorginho almost stops the play.
Penalties.
I mean, even the forward passes, I've often looked at him thinking, okay, fine, people have compared you to a quarterback, but he's not Bastian Schweinsteiger in his form. Or even Toni Kroos. He's
a better version of Mikel Arteta as a player.
Even
because
then,
Mikel Arteta had that
1000%
situation
sure.
with the side to side, no progressive passing.
But he at least tackled well, and he played a little quicker. Jorginho, he looks as if he operates in Morse code. And that's never what you want from a central midfielder.
Okay, I would have stopped you there before you started insulting your players and you start supporting Manchester United over the weekend. I'll say this on Kai. I remember when he joined the league, and my first question was, he plays in a 4-5-1 as a 10 with someone in front of him. And Chelsea don't play that. It's a 4-3-3. It's either you're wide or you're the number 9. He was, to me, when I saw Kai Havertz in Leverkusen, I was like, wait, that's Müller 2.0. When he retires, he comes in. So my thing is, Cyrus, go sell him to Bayern Munich and see how it's going to work. You can take Müller back and see maybe if Müller can work. But
we're fine.
Sell him to Bayern Munich.
Even Gnabry or dare I say any one of the other pacey
take
guys.
Leroy Sané.
Kingsley Coman.
So for me, that was it. But then the question, obviously, when you brought it up, I was like, okay, who else in the league, in the top 6, has been underwhelming? And I'm not talking about the season, because if you talk about underwhelming, everyone will say Mo Salah. But just in general of the past year and a half.
We should say Mo Salah.
Yeah, he has. Trent has, but I see Trent's back, like Liverpool has. Like, what's going on?
Trent even worse than Salah, because Trent, from an FPL perspective, he's broken everybody, and then also the fact that he's somewhat broken that Liverpool defense.
Cyrus, I'm trying to go to the Sancho defender here.
No, we got to let's pick off these specific topics first. Salah bad, Trent bad, right now Sancho.
Yes, Wahid, your boy, Jadon Sancho.
Jack Grealish is mine, man.
Jack Grealish.
That was one of Wahid's calls that he got right. That's the only call that this man has got right in the past 2 years.
Did you guys not watch the Manchester derby?
Yeah,
he wasn't good. United were just really bad.
No, he was good. He was good. He was made to look better in the game, but he was good.
The best thing Grealish has done in that City shirt is that stupid little dance he did when they walked on for the title-winning, trophy lifting thing.
And that's
the best
also
thing
fine.
He's done.
But guys, were we expecting Jack to be the alpha in this team?
Well, not really. Aren't we kind of expecting him to be Phil Foden? I mean, at the very least. And that's the thing about Jack Grealish.
Yes, but Phil Foden's a better footballer than Jack. We know this.
Well,
Jack's just got Premier League experience.
Jack Grealish has Jesse Lingard vibes about him, because people are treating Jack Grealish like he's 20 years old when he's 27 years old and a £100 million player.
Yeah.
He's not a young man. He's been bought for a world record fee. British record fee. Don't treat him like a kid from your academy. He can't be mollycoddled.
Or
like how we're treating Rashford.
Well, he is a guy from the academy. So yes. Don't treat him like that. Like he's one of our own. He's one of our own.
Okay, cool. If I give you Jack, Wahid, will you give me Jadon Sancho?
Yes, Jadon Sancho has been very frustrating for me this season. There's moments in games when he's good. There's moments but then he ghosts. He ghosts for large portions of games, and I'm like, what does this man do? he's fast but not rapid. He's a good dribbler but doesn't go past players. I'm not entirely certain what he does.
Is it not a function of ETH wanting him to defend a little bit more, but even though he doesn't do that either?
I don't know. I don't know, because you can't lay this blame at ETH's door, because it's very much similar to last season. Again, at times in games he looks all right. At times in games he just stands and does nothing. So I think this is more a case of the kid finding his feet and trying to figure out his place in the team and in the squad and in the league and in the national team. And it's a little bit all over the place, I think, in his head at the moment. And I think he needs to figure out, firstly, what he's good at and start to do what he's good at really well. Because I think he's trying to do too many things that he's not good at. Like, for one, I don't see him hitting the byline enough and doing and cutting back, which I think he is actually really good at. Go past your defender, hit the byline, and cut it back. He is actually good at that, but we don't see it often enough. There's certain things that I just don't understand. To me, the biggest issue with Jadon Sancho is that he often just takes the very easy pass. The easy pass to Luke Shaw or to Bruno on the inside is very, very simple. I mean, we could have Jack Grealish come and do that for us, or some other very average player. So you don't chase a player for 2 years. You don't chase a player for 2 years and pay £72 million for him to take the easy option in attacking positions. You buy attacking players to play with flair, to create stuff out of nothing, and he does none of that.
True. So here's the thing. It feels to me like he's a guy who is in like a Kai Havertz situation where we don't know what his true position is, because it feels to me like he wants to play like a second 10, like an inside 10.
No.
Or do we know what he is?
No, he's a left winger. He's a left winger who's okay on the right. He's not a 10, he's not a striker. He's a left winger. No, he's a winger. And I think that the biggest problem was that when he was bought as a square peg in a round hole. He was a left winger coming in to try and fix a problem on the right. And that is another issue. That might not be his problem. That is a recruitment issue at Man United. They thought they'd get a player who's better on the left to come and fill a hole on the right. That hasn't worked out. He's had to move back to the left, and they've had to spend 100 million euros to fix a problem that they created on Anthony. So I think that is also a problem insofar as the recruitment went, that he came in to fill a position that he wasn't, that he's like a 6 out of 10 player on the right, but like an 8 out of 10 player on the left. And United tried to shoehorn him into the right. And I think that's been one of the other issues, the teething issues, insofar as that he doesn't realize he hasn't understood the role, but good wingers can play on both sides. And I'll maintain that till the day I die. Good wingers can play both sides. So then
what do you do with him now?
I want to say time. I want to say he needs a bit more time, but I want to know how. But at the same time, I'm going to say, but how much time? Because there's players in the team who are playing better than him, and on the balance of play at the moment, he doesn't. If Martial's fit, Sancho doesn't make the side, because Rashford is playing better than him and plays on the left. Martial plays through the center. Anthony plays on the right, and that midfield picks itself at the moment. So. Again, like, is he going to become a Thursday night £72 million player? And that's kind of what we have to.
Give him Ronaldo at the time. Playing Barcelona and Juventus.
Yeah, it'll be a fake Champions League.
So Wahid, I've forgotten the name of a certain extremely talented United footballer in the Fergie era who could do absolutely everything with a football except actually play for Man United. And then ended up becoming a bit of a journeyman. It's, you have so many of these kinds of players who've been at the club who look as if they should kick on to the next level and don't. And I don't know if because Sancho feels as if he's playing within himself. And that often then is, in a way, indicative of the manager saying, don't lose the ball. Don't do this. We can't afford for you to do that. And he's just not free. He played with the freedom in Dortmund that a young player plays with.
I struggle to believe that's what Ten Hag has told him when you look at the way the other forwards in that team play. I struggle to think that's the issue of the manager saying don't lose the ball, position-based football, because the other forwards are taking a lot of risks. The other forwards are shooting on sight at the moment. There's a lot of risks being taken by the forwards, whereas the defenders and the midfielders sort of are creating the control to allow those forwards to go express themselves. So I struggle to believe it's the manager's instructions that.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying it is entirely, but doesn't it sort of seem, because I'm trying to figure out why. Why is there such a massive difference between what we've seen him being capable of and what he's delivering, considering that he's playing in the position?
Because Cyrus, he was young when he was doing these things. He's gotten older, and it's caught up with him. He's like the world's caught up with him. He's not the.
No,
if there is a world where we
I think
believe that this guy,
I think there might be parallels here between Pulisic, Kai Havertz, and Jadon Sancho, insofar as that they were able to tear up that Bundesliga, but maybe just struggling in England. And I think that just the way the game is played in England might be a little bit more tough for wingers like that, or wide forwards, whatever you want to call them, because they're all three quite similar players to make that transition from Germany to England. And I'm leaning towards that, because that's not a Man United issue. That seems to be an overarching issue with these players coming from the Bundesliga, apart from the robot that is Erling Haaland.
Okay, Dean, you have a fraud that you want us to discuss?
Yeah, and I think everyone's going to agree with me, but I kind of want to get what everyone's thoughts on him is. And for me, that man's Perisic. He was promised as the wingback of wingbacks that Conte molded him into the person that he is. He's got the sort of playing time. He's won what he needed to win. He's been at the highest level, and he can come into the team. He's going to provide all of the quality on the side, and like he's just going to be the man that makes it click. And to be honest, I don't really know what he does. He doesn't defend. He doesn't get forward as much as you need him to get forward. The quality of the crosses are average to sometimes good, and everyone's like, yo, Perisic will come good. Perisic will do this. He's just not doing it. He's not really doing anything. And I think a lot of people know how to beat him as well. But he's old. Just run past him. So
the thing is with Perisic is everyone spoke about the versatility. He's a good footballer. That's what he is.
Good footballer. 100%.
But he's not. He's not necessarily good in. Yeah, he's not necessarily good in one position, and that was the thing with buying a guy like that who's versatile. It's like, dude, what are you good at? You know, and let's start there. But also because he's old and the price you paid for him, well, technically that's what you're gonna get for the time. You can't run away from people unless you're Tom Brady, but he's now being caught up with it. But like Perisic is like the fact that he went on a free for a guy who could fit in pretty much any team. He could fit in a Chelsea side, and Chelsea loved these old men up until obviously Todd Bowley came in. And that's what it's okay. No, I'm going to stop here. I'm going to stop here. Mr. Allegedly Thomas Partey is not underwhelming. That man is the reason why Arsenal are where they are to this thing. There's no way Thomas Partey is the problem. He's the reason why Granit Xhaka can play as high as he can and score all these goals. Yeah. He's the reason why this team is taking.
There's a big elephant in the room with Thomas Partey that we shouldn't get into.
There's that.
Yeah.
Although, and we won't do that. I don't think that Thomas Partey's been the underwhelming person at Arsenal. I think Arsenal have very few underwhelming players in this team, especially since they're flying as high as they are right now. What I would say about Arsenal is that I feel as if they are overachieving. There are certain players who are playing way above their general skill levels, and I don't know how sustainable that is. I'm not going to mention any names here, though I probably should, because this guy just irritates me. But I do think that. Yeah, you know me and that guy. But he's
someone needs to just teach him a lesson, bro.
He'll teach himself a lesson. He's pretty much the Darren Anderton of the Arsenal team. For our younger viewers, he was also known as Sick Note. The thing about like Arsenal in particular is, I think that they are just they've been through the wars together, and they've come out on the other side of something here. But I do think that post World Cup, there's a whole lot of change, and hopefully we'll have a chance to chat about this soon, because I think this is probably going to be one of the more weird World Cups, because there are crazy injuries happening right now. People are just being, dropping out of the tournament left, right, and center. That's why I feel like Brazil could potentially go and win it, because they could just call up anybody and be like, "Oh yeah, that guy." Be like, "Oh yeah,
He's
that
Brazilian."
was pretty good." Yeah, I mean, there are Brazilians like Jorginho winning stuff with Italy. So I remember
Andreas
reading once.
Pereira is Brazilian.
Yeah,
Yes.
he's going to the World Cup. He just scored a
So,
worldie against whatever it was.
but they're talking about, like, not a lot of people know that. Do you know that football transfers out of Brazil have contributed to the GDP of that country in recent years? Like, these guys just make footballers, and so that's why Brazil is going to do it. But anyway, to go back to Arsenal, it's hard to call somebody underwhelming when they don't play. But what happened to the 70 million pound man? And that's what
Who's
I
this?
have a question about.
Oh, Pep.
Who's this?
Yes, Nicola Pepe.
Nicolas Pepe has left. He's playing in
Is that-
France.
He's at
So-
Nice.
Yeah, he's at Nice.
He's
that
not
who?
so nice.
Yeah,
Sorry? Yeah, so
He's-
Jim Ratcliffe's scheme.
yeah.
So
Where's
oh,
Smith
yeah.
Rowe? Where's Smith Rowe? That kid.
He's
Injured.
the one
Who's the
who's
second
underwhelming,
coming?
but he's
Yes.
injured. He's injured, but he can't.
He's-
He's struggling to get a spot in this team because Martinelli's
he's injured.
playing out of
and
his socks.
Yeah. So I look at that and I say, look, like the players that were, and this is the reason why I bring this up, the players that had been underwhelming in the past seem to have been shipped off, and no longer play within the structures at Arsenal at the moment. But what happens when that definite Arsenal injury issue with 4 or 5 guys injured at the
Where
same
Thomas
time
Partey
starts
gets
happening?
injured.
Yeah, the regular. And
Because
so
if he gets
that's-
injured, Albert Sambi Lokonga is not going to give us anything.
I
The
still
guy's
like
great.
that guy. I still like that guy. I mean, he's
Cyrus,
never
I
going to
think-
win
I
World Cups,
think he's going to
but
leave
I
Arsenal.
love that guy.
January. I think he's going to leave Arsenal in January. And obviously you got Mo Elneny who's injured too, and he's not going to
Yeah.
the World Cup. But yeah, so obviously, as you say, that team, one injury away from falling and everything just going crazy. The guy who's been underwhelming for me in parts due to inconsistency is Martin Odegaard. They're like Sancho, there are more games where he'll ghost.
Yeah.
And he just won't want the ball. And there's a moment where he'll sit on the right. And I'm sitting there going, no. You're supposed to replace Mesut Ozil. You're supposed to sit in the middle. We're going to give you the ball, and you need to do what you need to do with the ball. But you don't want the ball. So what am I going to do with you?
You said something really important there that also I think speaks to Sancho. Does Sancho look like he wants the ball? Like, when I actually see him playing, he looks as if he'd rather not. Like, he'd be like, thanks, but I'd rather not.
Thanks, but no thanks. Okay,
Yeah.
guys, final words. This weekend, obviously, Chelsea United predictions, and then we're going to close this out. Wahid, are you winning at Stamford Bridge?
2-2.
Ooh. Are we going to see a boxing match between... Oh, no, Tuchel's gone and Conte's... Okay. So there won't be any boxing match between Harry Potter and ETH. Cyrus, what's your prediction?
It's a really tough one because I honestly don't know.
That's why I've gone for 2-2 because I also don't know,
Yeah.
but I think it could be entertaining. And I think
It should be a
United
good
are,
game.
I think United are struggling for that defensive consistency. So we'll have a game where we like absolutely shut out Spurs, and then there'll be a game where someone has a brain fart, Dalot or Shaw probably, which puts pressure on Varane and Martinez. But that's why I'm thinking like a 2-2 type of result.
I think United might even win this one 2-1. And the reason I've said this is that in the bigger games this season, United have stepped up, barring the Manchester derby, which was just the worst possible game you could have ever played. But beating Liverpool and beating Spurs shows that there's an ability to beat teams that are at the same level as you. I do think that City are generally a level above everyone else. And even that loss to Liverpool, I don't really see that as being City were bad. They tried something tactically that didn't work out, and then they got caught by a sneaky goal. But I think that United, and potentially it might even be Casemiro that is the sort of destroyer that makes things happen for them in that game. I think United might come away from Stamford Bridge with 3 points. As a Chelsea supporter, I'd love for us to win. But I don't know if I see that as being a thing. And maybe it's also because we're still at the beginning of the Graham Potter era. Anything can happen with this team. We haven't seen him play any of the big teams, and so this will be that real test.
He's generally had our number for a couple of seasons now. He's generally had our number
with lesser players, right? But let's see what happens. If I could have one wish from a genie in a bottle, okay, make that 2 wishes. I'd really love to be kind of rich, but after that, it would be to have Thiago Silva be as young as like 27 years old in the peak of his powers. That guy he is the most incredible defender that no one's talking about enough in the Premier League. Unbelievable player.
Dean, these guys gave you essays.
Scores 1 and Sancho scores 2, and then we come in next week and we unpack it all with Cyrus.
So that's your genie's wish. Be like, yeah, that's it. That's all I want. Sancho and Rashford.
Sancho and Rashford.
Okay, enough about Sancho and Rashford. Dean, are Sancho and Rashford going to score this weekend, or is Chelsea winning?
Honestly, this has 0-0 written all over it for me. I think Chelsea have the defense to shut United down, and I think United's got Casemiro and a bit of that midfield prowess to stop Chelsea before they get on the attack. I honestly think that's the way it's going to play out. I think it will be entertaining. There will be chances, but I honestly don't see it being a lot. If it's not 0-0, maybe someone sneaks 1 goal somehow, but I honestly don't see it being a high-scoring match, and I honestly wouldn't be surprised at 0-0. That's the way I see it going through.
Okay. I'm actually going to go for a Chelsea win. I think Harry Potter knows how to beat Manchester United.
4 different views, yeah.
Yeah. I think Harry Potter knows how to beat Manchester United, and he's going to prove it again. I think apart from the right side of Chelsea's defense, I think he can figure out a way to get through. And I know Casemiro is great, and I know he's amazing, but I just feel Aubameyang and Mason Mount doing something in the tight spaces, and that's where I think Manchester United might struggle. But if they were celebrating last night like they won the Super Bowl, I'm putting money on Chelsea winning. So
I just don't know. Look, I get you. The thing is, as much as I used to
put Mason Mount on that forward watcher as well.
No, Mason Mount
he's on form.
Since he came back from England and he scored there, he's been really good for Chelsea. Before that, I'd agree with you.
Yeah, no, I picked him in my fantasy side, but I'm not sure I rate him. He's like an attacking Scott McTominay. You like him because he's on a go.
Okay, I think that's where we need to leave it. Attacking Scott McTominay. That's where we got to leave it. Thank you very much, Jess, for joining. Remember, this is the Cheap Seats. We are sponsored by Classic Shirts, and please go check them out. Outside of that, guys, good luck this weekend. We'll come back and talk about attacking Scott McTominay's. But outside of that, goodbye, good night, and let's
He's probably going to score.
Okay.